everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Andrea here, and today we are back with video number 2 of my Financial Fridays series. Now this series is for people looking to enhance their financial habits and ultimately lead to a life of financial freedom. With that said, if you have not seen video number 1, definitely go ahead and check that out. I will put the link in the description box below. Also, video number 1 is all about money saving tips and essentially how to increase your emergency fund. Today's video is all about credit scores and how to improve yours. Now, as someone personally who has achieved a credit score of 800 and above, I feel like I know a thing or two when it comes to credit scores and credit reports. So before we get into it, definitely go ahead and click that subscribe button, rate, comment, share, and all those good things. And without further ado, let's get right to it. Now, before I tell you how to improve your credit score, we first have to talk about the credit score range and what ultimately is considered a good credit score. Most credit score models range from 300 to 850, with 850 being the top score. According to Experian, which is one of the 3 credit bureaus, a credit score of 670 to 739 is considered good, 740 to 799 is considered very good, and 800 to 850 is considered exceptional. So basically, you want to aim to have a credit score of 700 and above. Now that we know what we're aiming for, let's get into the factors that affect your credit score. Factor number 1 is payment history. That actually makes up 35% of your credit score. Factor number 2 is amount owed or total debt. This also could be considered your credit utilization, but it means all the money that you currently owe. Factor number 3 is the length of your credit history, which is 15%. Factor number 4 is your credit mix, which means the different types of credit you currently have. That is 10%. And last but not least, the 5th factor is new credit, which makes up 10% of your credit score. And don't worry, we will get into more of what each of these mean as we move along the steps to improve your credit score. Alright, the first step to improve your credit score is to first run your credit reports. There are 3 credit bureaus, that is TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. You have to run all 3 credit reports to see what is reported by each agency. Essentially, some agencies may report some things and other agencies may not, so you need a full picture of your credit history. The reason why we are checking this is to make sure that no one has stolen your identity, that there are no mistakes, and that everything is accurate. You also want to see if some things are right and if you actually owe some people, which we'll get into a little bit later. To run your credit report, you can visit annualcreditreport.com. You get 1 free credit report from each credit bureau each year. Now, usually, even though you only get 1 per year, you actually can get free weekly reports due to COVID-19. If you check out their website, you will see a little friendly message there telling you exactly that you currently get free weekly reports. So definitely go ahead and take advantage of that opportunity. If you encounter any websites that are telling you to pay for your credit score or pay for your credit report, do not pay for those. You do not need to pay for those at all because, like I said, they are currently free weekly. Once you've obtained all 3 of your credit reports, you're going to review these closely. Basically, you are looking for all items that are negatively impacting your credit and therefore your credit score. These negative items include the following: not enough credit, large outstanding loan balances, late payments, collection accounts, maxed out credit cards, and bankruptcy. For the people who are suffering from a lack of credit or not enough credit history, I would actually recommend that you get a credit card. Now, if you've seen my first video, you know that I recommended to limit credit card usage. However, if you don't really have credit, you need to start somewhere. If you cannot get a standard credit card, I would suggest that you apply for a secure card through your bank. So instead of the bank giving you a $600 credit limit, for example, you will give the bank $600 and then start off that way. And once the bank sees that you are responsible and you pay off your balance every single month, then essentially that secure card will convert over to a real credit card. I have personally used this back when I was in college, or maybe even high school actually. I think I first used it when I was in high school, and it's a very sufficient way to first start out with credit. Okay, moving on to negative impact number 2, which is large outstanding loan balances. So let's use a common one, which is student loans. If you have very large student loans, if you barely made a dent in them, that is probably negatively impacting your credit score. But have no fear, it's not the end of the world because your credit score is made up of a variety of factors. But I will recommend that you try to pay down that large balance as much as you can to improve your credit score. Okay, negative impact number 3 is late payments. Now, you should always do your best to pay your bills on time, but more specifically, you should not be late more than 150 days. If you are late on a payment for 150 days, your bill collector can actually sell that to a collection agency, which is also negative impact number 4, which is collections accounts. So say that you have a medical bill and you don't pay that bill for 150 days. Well, that hospital may actually go ahead and sell that to a collection agency, and then it's out of their hands. And now you have to work with the collection agency to pay it and also get it off your credit. So to avoid all this in the first place, do your best to pay your bills on time. Negative impact number 5 is maxed out credit. We'll just use an easy one, which is your credit cards. If you max out your credit cards, this is going to impact your credit score significantly, mainly because credit utilization is 30% of your credit score. In essence, you should always aim to have below 30% credit utilization on all of your credit cards. The lower, the better. So if you can only have 5% credit utilization, that's even better than 30. But as a general rule of thumb, you should have no more than 30% credit utilization on each of your credit cards. Okay, the last negative impact is number 6, which is bankruptcies or foreclosures. You should of course know if you have any of those, but this would be a key time to check if there are any mistakes and or identity thefts involved. But I would think that you would know if you filed for bankruptcy. Also, one thing to note about bankruptcy is that if you file for bankruptcy, it will stay on your credit report for 7 years. So do it wisely. Okay, moving on to step number 3 to improve your credit score, which we kind of touched on a little bit, but it's to pay off your debt immediately. Once you've reviewed your credit score and if you see some collections, you should definitely go ahead and pay all those off as much as you can. In addition to the debts, you should also make sure to simultaneously continue to pay your bills on time so that they do not get sold to a collection agency and we'd be back through this cycle all over again. So for those very high debts, that leads us to step number 4, which is to call the lender to negotiate and or set up a payment plan. Now when you negotiate, you may be able to knock down a few percentage points of that interest rate. You also may be even able to knock down the amount owed. Overall, it's the best way because it will get you on track to paying off the debts and also hopefully paying less debt. Okay, after tip number 4, that leads us to tip number 5, which is once you have paid off these debts, you're going to call back up your lender and ask them to remove it from your credit report. Yes, after you paid a debt, it will show that it was paid, but ultimately it's just better if it's gone and removed from your report entirely. So once you paid off debt, definitely go ahead and call your lender and ask them to remove it. Moving on to step number 6, which is to dispute any inaccuracies on your credit reports. Now when you file a dispute, the credit agency has 30 days to respond. Basically, you're going to be asking a debt collector to prove that you actually owe the money. Now, if the debt collector fails to give the proof or they fail to respond, then ultimately that debt will be removed from your credit report. So I say definitely comb through your credit reports, and if there's any doubts in your mind that you actually owe something, then reach out, file a dispute because it may be removed. So shoot your shot and shoot your shot wisely. Moving on to step number 7, which involves credit utilization. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that makes up 30% of your credit score. So essentially, you want to make sure that your credit utilization is relatively low. Now, you can do that 2 ways. Either 1, you can pay down debt, or 2, you can get more credit. So let me explain what that means. Say you have a credit card whose limit is $10,000. That means you can never have a balance that exceeds $3,000 because $3,000 is 30% of $10,000. However, say you make a $6,000 purchase on that credit card. Well, now you're suddenly at 60% utilization. But you don't necessarily have to make a payment of $3,000. Another alternative is to ask your bank to increase your credit limit to $20,000. So instead of you having a $10,000 limit, you will now have a $20,000 limit, and $6,000 is 30% of $20,000. So without even paying down the $6,000 to get it back down to $3,000, you essentially asked your bank to increase your credit line, and now you're back down to the 30% credit utilization limit. And before I move on, I just want to reiterate that the goal is to be below 30% credit utilization. Not at 30%, but below. And honestly, if it's even lower than that, the better. Moving on to step number 8, which is to improve the length of your credit history. Now, your credit history is actually 15% of your credit score. Your credit score takes into account all of the following: how long your credit accounts have been opened, the age of your newest account, the age of your oldest account, and the average age of those combined. It also looks at how long certain accounts have been established and how long it's been since you've used those accounts. So say for instance you have 2 credit cards. One has been open for 10 years, the other has been open for 2 years. It's advised that you do not close that 10-year account even though you may not want to use it anymore. Essentially, if you no longer really want to use that 10-year-old, credit card, I would suggest that you still use it occasionally just to keep it active and open since it is your oldest account. Moving on to step number 9, which is to diversify your credit mix. Now, your credit mix essentially means the different types of credit that you have. And your credit mix affects your credit score by 10%. Credit mix involves revolving accounts and installment accounts. Revolving accounts include credit cards, retail credit cards, and home equity lines of credit. Installment accounts will include your student loans, mortgage loan, and car loan. So basically, to improve your credit score, you want to show that you are doing a great job managing these different types of credit. Moving on to our last step to improve your credit score, which is to limit the amount of hard inquiries on your credit report. Keep in mind there are both soft inquiries and hard inquiries. Soft inquiries do not adversely affect your credit score. However, hard inquiries do affect your credit score. Soft inquiries are those such as a potential employer doing a background check on you, or even when you pull your own credit report, that is a soft inquiry. Again, I repeat, that will not adversely affect your credit score. Hard inquiries when you actually apply for a new credit card, a car loan, a mortgage loan, etc. That is when lenders are pulling hard credit reports, and therefore it will impact your credit score. So you want to limit these as much as possible. Also, one more thing to know, if you are shopping for a new car and need a new car loan, it's best to get all of those applications in within a 14-day period because usually that will be viewed as one hard inquiry versus the actual number of applications that you put in. Alright, those are my tips on how to improve your credit score. If anything that I mentioned today resonated with you, definitely go ahead and make a comment below. Also, if you have any additional tips that you think will be helpful, make a comment as well. As I mentioned earlier, don't forget to subscribe, rate, comment, share, and all those good things. And until next time, see you later.